All right, here's a guy who has done a tremendous amount of work and built up an alumni network in this real niche sport. It didn't used to be that way so much. Track was always like the thing way back in the day, and I'm sure he's learned a lot of history about it as well. But Aaron Weeks, thanks for coming in the show, man.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
And so, where do we begin? If you've been in and around the community of the Berkshires, you know a little bit about an effort that has been made to make improvements to the Pittsfield, city of Pittsfield track facilities. Aaron has been behind this. But let's start at the beginning for you. I know your dad, who was a longtime coach at Taconic High School, Pittsfield High School. He worked at Taconic for many years, so obviously that's a piece of you and your family.
Yeah.
But how did all of this begin for you?
Well, my first exposure to track was actually in 2002, going to track camp with Coach Curry and my dad.
Oh man,
I was like 6 years old. I was the youngster there with some high school kids, some middle school kids. And they did that for 2 years, and I think the program kind of ended. And then in high school, I played baseball my first 2 years, kind of like you. And then,
wow, you know my history.
yeah, a
Holy
little bit.
cow!
Then I got cut junior year, and that weekend after I got cut, my dad convinced me to do track, called Coach Albano on the phone, was like, he's going to do track, tell him some stuff about it. And that first year, it was just kind of figuring out what I wanted to do, trying different events. Didn't really, like, wasn't very good because it was completely new to me
Yeah, yeah.
since I was 6 years old.
Mm.
And then the next year, I found some success in javelin and triple jump, and that kind of fostered my love, I guess, for the sport.
Well, maybe a little bit of baseball background in
Yeah,
javelin, although
absolutely.
although you throw it away differently. It's not
Yeah,
the same thing
but it
because
definitely helped.
yeah, that this sport of track, I look at it as an activity that's probably one that's the most accessible of any athletic event or any sport that's out there because there's not necessarily a team sport component. It's generally inexpensive as long as you can get running shoes.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of the major piece of equipment that you need to bring to the table. So for me, investing in a sport like this is probably your best investment to impact the most number of people, the most number of students, the most greatest number of young people, and also to make sure it's accessible to everyone, no matter your socio-economic background.
Right. And it's the one sport that people, once you're done with high school or college, continue to do.
Mm,
People continue to run. Every day there's people at the track. We saw them out there today.
yeah. How's the track look out there today?
uh, Better than it will on Friday
Yeah.
because it'll be warm, but
Yeah.
there's definitely some bubbles.
Yeah.
It's seeing its age.
Yeah. So we'll get to that in a little bit
Yeah,
because
for
there's an
sure.
effort afoot to help this, and there's many people I think who are now aware of the situation because of you, and because of this network that you have built. But the effort to advocate publicly. So this, I assume, has been a bit of an education for you,
Yeah,
because you went from okay, I care about track, I love track, I care about the teams that are competing, and then we have these issues. So now it's like, okay, what's the next step here to get this track fixed, to get these facilities fixed? So take me to that first day when you're like, we got to do something.
yeah. It was last spring actually, roughly around when you were talking to Coach Albano, and we were about to have a meet, or we had just had a meet versus Taconic, and they claimed the discus cage was going to be set up, and it never happened. And I figured it was time to actually me reach out instead of just say, "Oh, somebody has to do it," I guess. And then something actually happened, which was cool. And then this fall, when we saw that the bubbles in the track that you've heard of and seen the pictures, hadn't been fixed, I figured it was time to send some more emails and reach out to the city council and the mayor.
And so tell me what that's like. Has it been more challenging than you thought? Has it been maybe in some cases things have happened because you said the first time around, wow, some things kind of popped relatively quickly.
Yeah.
Maybe it was stuff that should have happened before anyhow. But what has that been like? And learning this atmosphere, and I think you can take this as a microcosm, and you could probably put this in any town USA, and this is what you have to deal with. But like, what has that been like?
Yeah, the first time in the spring, I got tons of responses from city councilors and the mayor and the superintendent and the AD. Everyone was like, yes, we need to do this. We need to fix the long jump pit because you remember that was an issue. Discus, shot put. They all responded and they were ready to help. So far with the track, it's been a little less, but I think we found some people who really want to help, which is good.
And what is the number price tag to do the track over, or because there's many different levels.
Right.
And again, I think this is informative to anyone who's trying to renovate a track in the United States of America in 2022. It's probably going to be a similar number, but what are we looking at for a replacement or for a full reconstruction of the track?
So it sounds like the full reconstruction, which I think the track part alone is like 500 to 600,000 because they tear everything up, they lay new asphalt, and then they put the rubber surface down, they add all the event areas, and then I think it's another 3 or 400,000 to do all of the area around it. But not everyone's doing that. But Taconic needs bleachers, they need parking, new fences, so that sort of stuff. So about $1 million will do the whole area.
Which, $1 million always sounded like a lot of money way back in the day.
Right.
But when you are in our country today, where many communities are receiving millions and millions and millions of dollars in ARPA dollars, and just so people understand what these dollars are, it's the post-COVID, sort of economic development tool, or I'm not really sure exactly how it's defined, but it's money, and it's coming in. So there's a lot of money coming into our community. That may or may not be an option for you. But when you look at priorities and you say, well, maybe a community will spend $1 million for every road construction project that they do. That's 1 mile. So here we are. We got a quarter of a mile, 400 meters.
Yep.
That would cost about $500,000 or $600,000 for that. To me, you put that in perspective. That's well worth the money to do that, especially knowing how impactful that track is.
Right, and with the proper upkeep, it's going to last 30 years. So, I mean, this track's been around since 1988.
Wow,
that's the first time they laid the rubber on it.
And okay, so you're a history guy, and I think this is relevant in history of track, because previously in the Berkshires, the track of choice was Clap Park.
Right.
And that was what kind of track is that? Not a rubberized track.
Right. It was a cinder track.
The old cinder, which was, I mean, even in the Olympics, they ran on cinder way, back in the day.
Right.
But then we went to the rubberized tracks. But so 1988 was the first time we had a rubberized track in Pittsfield.
Yep.
Okay. So that's actually, what's fascinating, Aaron? That really doesn't seem a long time ago, because I was running that track 10 years later.
Right.
Jesus. Getting old, man. But so there it is, and a rich history. So as you've been advocating, and it's not only you, but you have been kind of spearheading this, right, for sure. So there was a little group, and you've been spearheading it. As you've evolved, there's been a process to get more people involved. So tell me how that led to this next project of yours.
Yeah, so the alumni network I kind of created actually started because I was going to make I helped some kids throw Jav in the summer, not just from PHS, from whatever school want help. So I was making a group for them, and I was like, this could be a group for all Pittsfield High track athletes ever. So I made a separate one, and it started pretty slow actually, and then it's just taken off. And people reach out every day
Mm.
about their experience with Pittsfield High track and what it meant to them. I remember last year, Coach Albano was telling you the emails he was getting,
Mm.
how much people loved it and how it changed their life. And we're still getting those.
Yeah. And you've been working on being pretty much a journalist at this point in a lot of ways. Not only looking through, and I just saw a photo of the 1967, was it state champion or Western Mass champion?
Yeah.
I know at one, I'm not sure. Did they win a state championship under Coach Benedetti? I'm not sure.
Not in track.
Okay.
He won many as a ski coach.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So never got the track championship, but Western Mass is no small feat. So 1967. So I see some of the broader history, but what you've been doing has been actually taking the stories of individuals and creating profiles on this alumni track network. It's on social media and probably maybe some other places. I'm not sure if you have a website.
I'm working on slowly adding them just to like a Word doc so I can send them out in the emails, because there's plenty of people that don't have social media. So when I get their emails, I add them to the list, and I'm slowly working on adding all those profiles just to like a Word doc that can send them out. And I've been doing monthly emails to those people, just with like updates. I link the record book because people love to see that. Talk about some other stuff we're working on in that month, I guess.
So that again, a good. I mean, so what's your day job, Aaron?
I'm a mechanical engineer at General Dynamics.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. Not a bad gig.
No.
You know?
Yep.
They still get every other Friday off.
They do. Yep.
Nice. I mean, we love General Dynamics.
Yep.
We love General Dynamics. So good. Employing our young people, allowing them to stay here in the Berkshires and do great projects. So, looking at that, what is the next step right now? I mean, I think there's a little bit of good news, there's a little bit of bad news, all mixed in as far as the condition of the track. It sounds like there may be some challenges for this year going on.
Yeah, so I actually was out at the track today with Jim Conant and Jim McGrath and the guys at Craft Co., which is the company who's going to refurbish the track. And it sounds like they're going to be able to do a job to fix the bubbles, but it won't be in time for the first few meets that are supposed to be hosted there, because Pittsfield's hosting a few, Taconac's hosting at least one in April. So those will most likely have to move to other tracks. Whoever we were supposed to host will probably now have to host.
Yeah, I'll hold my sort of disgust at that because these are the basic things, right? And I think as the public, when we're looking at the basic public services, to have a track that can be able to host a basic meet is just one of those basic things. But we're going to stay very positive here on that, and I think that's important because we just got to get this thing done. So now you're in this process of advocating, maybe a little bit of negotiating, maybe a little bit of thinking where the next step is going to be. Maybe it could be a combination of some private fundraising, although I really think this should be really all public funding. Personally, I don't think this is something that maybe to put the bells and whistles on at the end of the day. We want to put a grandstand and maybe have something fancy dancy there. Maybe that needs to be privately financed, but the basics need public funding.
Right. That's the hope, anyways. And it sounds like there's a chance. Jim McGrath is pretty optimistic that we'll find the funding in the next 2 years.
Yeah. So tell me about yourself a little bit more. My, we were, in the green room, we were talking about your dad, and he was the first guy long before he was a track coach of mine. He was the first guy to ask me, among other classmates, to run a mile, and it was at Williams Elementary School, and I can't remember exactly what grade it was. It could have been first grade, second grade, but it could have been even been kindergarten. I can't remember, but this mustached man, he had a mustache back then, long before you were born.
Yep.
And always a wonderful, super positive guy, and someone who listened. I always remember that. His demeanor was always one of openness and kindness. I feel that with you as well. You can tell. So that's your dad. Many people know him. Tell me about yourself. You work at General Dynamics.
Yep.
You obviously you grew up and went through the Pittsfield schools.
Correct. Yeah, I went to Williams, then Herberg, and then Pittsfield High. And I actually enjoyed it. And
you say like you're
hey,
I actually enjoyed it. Yeah, of course you did.
Yeah, I did. I had great times.
I did too.
I played football and did baseball my first 2 years at PHS, and then switched to track. And then I went to WPI and did track there for all 4 years.
Tremendous. What events did you do at WPI?
Javelin was my main event. There was a few indoor seasons where I participated in long and triple jump just to do something in indoor, because Javelin's a very specialized event. So in indoor, there's not really anything for you to do. Yeah. I kind of became the head cheerleader.
Isn't that funny? Like in college, there always had to be, because of Title IX, there always had to be a sort of equivalent sport so track, there's men and women's track, baseball, there's softball, and for football, what's the equivalent? Well, it turns out that it was field hockey in the NCAA. So, but when this is another metaphor, but when you, there really is no sport in indoor track.
The amount of times I got asked, oh, do they throw javelin indoors? Nope.
I don't think the health department would like that one.
No,
I don't think. Yeah, but so they're really because people think, well, maybe the javelin throwers can throw the hammer or something. No, totally different.
Yeah, very different body type for most people. I mean, as you get to the professional level, javelin throwers train as gymnasts. And like partially, where your hammer throwers and the bigger guys are completely different size. Your jab throwers look more like a sprinter or a jumper almost.
And there's that whole spin thing, and I think the hammer throwers do the spin too. No, right?
Hammer, shot, disc.
Okay,
so most of the guys will spin.
So they do that. The javelin thrower does not spin.
No.
Yeah, that'd be a little dangerous, but then again, it's also just not mechanically optimal to do it that way. So to move from baseball so tell me about that technique a little bit, because a baseball, a lot of people understand, okay, when you throw it, it's kind of like this through motion and maybe a little bit of a twist to the wrist, not too much, elbow up. But with the javelin, what is the basic difference there? And I'm just using baseball as context because a lot of people just know how to throw a baseball as opposed to a javelin.
A lot of I've heard a few jav coaches actually look for a volleyball player or a tennis player because they have that higher arm slot where you're coming higher up top. But with jav, if you throw it like a baseball, you end up hurting your elbow typically. Where you're out to the side like this.
Okay.
So your arm is just higher, and the goal isn't to throw it. You're not trying to get somewhere as fast as possible. Like a baseball, you're trying to get in from the outfield, say, as quick as you can.
You want to zip it in there.
For jav, you're trying to throw it as far as possible. So you're throwing it a lot higher, and you actually run into the throw.
What is the optimal degree for the length for it to go the furthest?
Yeah, somewhere just below 40 degrees.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Um,
So 45 degrees,
Yep.
too high,
Yep.
because it'll kind of like peter out and then.
Yeah, if there wasn't wind resistance, 45 would be perfect. But
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
But you gotta. Okay. Okay. So especially if there's heavy wind,
right,
like a headwind.
if there's a headwind, typically you're trying to throw it a little lower,
Okay.
and then the wind usually catches it.
I see.
And then if you have it now with the high school kids, typically we don't get into this, but with a tailwind, they'll throw it a little higher because if you get it up there, it kind of goes like a sail almost.
Right. Like if you have a tailwind and you're at the plate,
Right. Yeah.
just hit a nice fly ball and it may end up in the stands.
Exactly.
Right. So, similar concept with that. That's amazing, of course. And some of that would impact records because I know you can't have like wind aided records. And that's even with like long jumpers and things like
Right.
that.
But in Jav, well, in any throw, they don't look at the wind. They don't
Really?
care. So
wow. So you could get,
so you could definitely get some help.
and be a world record holder.
Right. Because at the pro level, in the running and jumping events, you have to be under, I think, 2 meters per second for a tailwind, which is nothing. It's like 6-7 miles an hour.
Okay.
So
Okay. So 2 meters per second equals 6 or 7 miles
somewhere
per
in
hour
there,
in that ballpark. Interesting. And what is your personal record for the javelin?
In college, I threw 195.
That's
feet.
195 feet.
Right.
That's a long way. It's about 2/3 of the football field, right?
Yeah.
So WPI, is that what division is WPI?
We were Division 3. We were in the NUMAC, which is with MIT, Springfield, and let's see, Babson, Coast Guard. So some pretty good competition for Division 3. I mean, MIT is one of the best schools every year because they're bringing people from around the world.
For sure, absolutely. And I think around the world, once you get into track and field, Europe, certainly in other continents, Asia, it's in a way a lot more popular because kids grow up in the United States. Maybe they want to play baseball or basketball,
Absolutely,
or you name it. There's sports that are very popular here, but track is much more kind of like soccer or football, as they would call it in Europe, is the sport. Similarly, track is held in much higher regard in a lot of ways. I mean, sprinting here in the United States is kind of popular, but who's the best American distance runner? Can you name that? I can't even name that anymore. But out there, it's probably a household name. And if you're in, say, Kenya or Ethiopia, they really know the distance runners there, for instance. So in a similar way, the throwers, high jumpers, pole vaulters, those people are much more well known. And I suppose you get a lot more athletes from.
Absolutely. I mean, Germany has probably the top 5 jav throwers in the world.
Really?
Yeah.
See, I'm sure no one listening to this podcast knew that.
No,
we've taught. We've taught you a thing or two. You must know about track. Well, maybe Brad Gordon's listening, and he knows. What a good guy he is. I coached with Brad when his son was going through. Zach, great distance runner. He ended up doing some great things in college, I think, as well. I mean, the number of athletes, and I say this just in anecdotal sense, but I think the number of athletes who left Pittsfield High School, and I'll throw Taconic in there as well, but I think in particular Pittsfield High School, for the size of PHS, the number of athletes who went on to perform very well in college, not just be on the team,
Right.
Like you performed well. You competed for 4 years. It's a very high percentage. I don't know what that percentage may be in comparison to other sports, but I think it's pretty remarkable looking at the size of Pittsfield.
Yeah, for sure. I was looking the other day, and it's 7.5% of just high school kids in America who do track go on to do it in college.
Mhm.
But I think we have to be well above that,
Yeah.
or at least the kids who stick around for a full season, I would say, because you get some kids are there the first week maybe,
Mhm.
and then they don't enjoy it. So
Yeah. And that's okay.
yeah,
But I think the big point of that is usually if you're trying out for the basketball team or the baseball team, you've been doing this for a long time
right,
and you're kind of in that system, you're in that clique, for lack of a better term, and you have to have done it for all those years. Track is one of those sports where you can be in ninth grade, show up, and hypothetically you could be a star. I've seen some amazing athletes who have never done it before. You are an example of that. Ended up doing it in college, but I've seen people who have done track and picked up the javelin, or ran sprints, because people know how to run fast,
right.
and you run fast in other sports as well. It can convert very easily to track. So that's one of the few sports that you can just step in and you can kind of be a star if you have the talent.
Yeah, and I think it says a lot about the coaching they've had at PHS
Sure.
for the last 100 years almost. I mean, track. I know every coach that's coached for the boys back to 1923-ish, at least.
Get out of town.
Yeah,
Wow.
I found that in the Eagles archives, and then it's kind of spotty. And then I found one or two coaches from the 19 teens, but like there were some serious coaches even before Rudy,
Mm.
that were winning Western Mass and perennial powerhouse teams.
And what's interesting? Coach Gary Curry, who was my mentor in high school, he was and your dad coached me in track. Gary Curry did cross country during that time at Pittsfield High School, and he told me a story about how Coach Benedetti worked with him and what he did. And if you could replicate this in a corporation or something like that, you would be a hugely successful corporation, by the way. So what Coach Benedetti did was allowed Coach Curry to focus on one event each season. So, when all the events are happening, Gary simply one season focused on the long jump. And then he did that and nothing else. And the next season, it was something like the pole vault, which we no longer have, but that's a whole other story. And then so on and so forth. So over years, over time, he became a true expert. And if you can imagine like in a business, okay, son, you're going to intern for 6 months in the marketing department, and then now 6 months you're going to be in the operations director internship role, that sort of thing. That leads to full well-roundedness. And so I would say, today, I don't think there's any greater coach out there. There's some who are maybe about the same, but Gary Curry is truly a legend.
Oh, absolutely.
As well, but because they did it right.
And he's still coaching.
Yeah. We got to get Gary on the show sometime. He's kind of a shy guy, but I can tell you, I had a lot of coaches, through the years in a lot of sports, but, and through college, but there's no other coach who had a better eye for distance running than Gary Curry.
Mm-hmm.
He could tell when you were fatigued, even when you didn't know it. We used to do repeats at Clap Park, and he'd tell you, what, you look a little tired today. Let's take a couple of these repeats. We'll just finish up and go back to school, because I'm like, I feel great, and he's like, no, you can tell the stride, everything. So he was one of the most brilliant distance running minds that I've ever encountered. So that's Pittsfield High.
Yeah,
and Taconic. He coached Taconic too.
Yep. Yeah. And my dad always talks about the battles that they had between each other. And he only the first year he beat him, I think, was your first year doing track there.
Going back,
yeah.
It was interesting. Going through college, the track meet that I will always remember, and Chuck Berkeley was in this meet. That he was in all the meets that year. This is going back to now we're really getting into the weeds. So Mount Anthony used to be a perennial power up in Vermont. and they were always undefeated, and Pittsfield never got a chance to really compete with them. But this year, that year, 90, I don't know, four or something, 95,
95, yeah.
95, it was. So the great thing about this, and I think every track meet should be like this, they had the announcer on the loudspeaker announcing the score after every single
That's
event.
awesome.
And as it went through, we knew exactly where we were in the meet. And the last few events, the 2 mile, and then of course the 4x4 is the final, just for anyone who knows, the last event in a typical meet like that, a dual meet, is the 4x4. And that was for all the marbles, and everybody knew it. So there was the 2 mile, and that was good. So we were in it, and then of course it came down to it. So everybody knew, and it was bedlam, at that time. So that was my very first track meet in my life. I was like, this is a great sport.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is a great sport. And your dad was a fantastic coach. I'm so sad he's not coaching anymore.
Yeah, this will be his first year that he hasn't coached in a while. He took a long time off until I got into track, and then he came back and helped Coach Albano my 2 years at PHS, and that got him like back into the sport.
Mhm.
And he was teaching at Taconic, so he moved over to coaching there.
So now, are you coaching now, or
Yeah,
okay? So you are an official coach, because last year I don't think you were.
I'm only a volunteer,
Okay.
but I help at PHS. The first year I got into coaching was 2019, and I was helping both schools because
Yeah.
my dad was coaching at Taconic, so I was helping them with Jav, and then I helped with jumps where they needed me, and then I had the PHS boys Jav throwers.
Mm.
Now I just have the PHS boys and girls Jav throwers.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. And get that technique down.
Yeah.
And by the way, there's a lot of scholarships out there. I mean, people, talk about the cost of higher education, and it is ridiculously expensive. But if you can get a scholarship, and I think it's Division I, Division II that may do
Yeah.
athletic scholarships. Division III, typically they don't. But what they do help you out with is, in a lot of cases, you may be that student that has the SATs that are here, and you have the grades that are here, and maybe it's the sport
Right.
that then gets you the slot
Absolutely.
in the high, and so that is a real thing. That is a real thing. So these sports are really important, for sure, to round out those colleges portfolios. They want good athletes,
Yeah.
to come in and be a part of a diverse campus. So okay, so the Track and Field Alumni Network, there are a number of ways that people can learn more about it. You're on Instagram, you're on Facebook.
Yep.
Where else are you?
They can also send me an email, and I'll get them on the mailing list. So
What's your email?
You should probably link it, but
Okay. No, I will link it.
adweeks15@gmail.com.
Okay, so we'll put that in on the blog and on.
We are looking into putting an ad in the paper.
Okay. Okay.
I'm not sure how much success we'll have, how many more people we'll get from that, because I'm not sure how many people look at the classified ads anymore.
Yeah.
When everyone was getting the Eagle delivered to their house.
For sure.
But
I think another opportunity is for every one of these high school reunions. So I don't know, we're in 2022, so I'm sure there's some reunions that are coming up in the fall. That may be a good opportunity to say, hey, who's the class president or secretary or treasurer of this class or that class? Maybe you can get a little plug there, and get people to sign up through those networks as well. Because I think people are yearning for this. I mean, there's something. I mean, a lot of sports, have that special connection, but I've seen and I've heard from a lot of people who I have not heard from in a very long time on that alumni network. And I know you want it to get bigger, and still it's burgeoning. It's kind of there's a couple hundred in the group, which is
right now
great.
We just went over 220 on Facebook, and then Instagram's right around 100. Some of the people overlap, but
yeah,
I think we get some more younger people on Instagram, and not all of them use Facebook. So as like the next few years, Instagram's probably going to pass the Facebook group, I would imagine.
Yeah.
And then I'm trying to get people's emails.
And then the TikTok group will.
Yeah. Trying to get emails because there's a lot of people that don't want to use social media, but
right.
a monthly email with an update isn't hard. So
yeah. So let's do this. In anything, I think the lesson in public advocacy is like you just don't stop, and don't get discouraged because then the inertia sets in as far as that goes. You just have to keep on keeping on, and I wish it weren't so hard, but then again, we all have our paths in life. So Aaron, I thank you for taking that mantle, because it's not easy. It's not something that just let so-and-so do it, or let the city councilor do it, or what have you. It does take that constant effort, and the assumption that something will get done. You can't have that assumption. You have to be proactive.
Right.
And when we get this track done, and when you lead this charge, and we get it done, it will last 30 years. So the track was first put down in 1988, and I'm sure it gave us a couple decades of pretty solid track events. And again, it's open to the public, so people go out there and use that track. And so it's not just the athletes.
Yeah, if you go out there in a few weeks, it's going to be busy, because we're going to have both schools, and then it's going to be nice and warm out. So a lot of people from the public like to come use it in that 3 to 5 time range is when everyone wants to use it. So
Right. And then later in the evening, people from the neighborhood. I go out there. I drive across town sometimes just to walk on that track, and we see our friends in the football team and everything. So it is a facility. It is publicly an asset for us. So let's do this. Let's get this thing done. $1 million. Come on, we have $44 million coming in for ARPA post COVID. So again, maybe or maybe not, some of those dollars can be used, but there is money there. So it's just a matter of prioritizing something that is important in our community. So Aaron, man, it's great to learn more about. I've never met you in person. This is the first time. You're tall like your dad.
Yeah, I think I may have met you at a Mother's Day race or something, but I was little, like 10 years old. So when my dad was the timer, if you remember that.
I probably not now that you mentioned that. I do remember that, but yeah. You are taller now.
Yes.
Awesome, my friend. All right, well, keep up the good work. We're rocking and rolling. We're going to push this out as much as I possibly can to get the word out and build that network, and keep on keeping on. It's a great sport.
Yeah. Thank you so much for having me.